Hello, hello. Welcome to CashFlow Hacks. I'm your host, Chris, and with me today is my co-host, Stephanie.
Hey. I am very excited to be here, as always, with Chris and our loyal listeners, the CashFlow Hackers, and anyone else that's tuned in, that's ready to make more, save more, and start living more now.
I think that I should give the listeners a little heads up.
Okay.
About the other little hacker we have in town.
Yeah, you can tell them about him.
Guys, if you hear some noise that sounds like an old man hacking, that would be Achilles.
Achilles is in the studio with us today.
And Achilles sounds like an old man. So I just wanted to give you a heads up. Anyhow, if you're interested in hacks to increase your cash flow, you are in the right place, because every couple weeks, Stephanie and I are going to be discussing different topics, giving you tips, strategies, and, just keeping you guys in the loop with some different financial topics that your advisor doesn't want you to know about. And why do we do this? Because the less you know, the more they make. And we want you to flip that script. So last week, Stephanie and I talked about situations where trusts are beneficial, but we alluded that this episode, we're going to talk about the different types of trusts and why you might need one.
Right. So our last episode ran kind of long, so we cut it into 2 episodes. So in this section, we are going to talk about, Chris, how do I know what trust type to pick? Right. So we're going to talk about that today. Now, as a quick recap, in a previous episode, Chris did a great explanation on the differences between revocable and irrevocable trusts, as well as the hybrid that we offer.
The safeguard trust.
Yes. But there's some special types of trust that you might have heard about. You might be, inquisitive about, that might be beneficial for, some unique situations. And you might have had someone tell you like, hey, you might need this type of trust. So we want to talk about the different types and how they can help you and your family.
So the last one that we were going to talk about, that we're going to talk about today, is the special needs trust. And who might need one of those? Well, if you have somebody in your family that needs Medicaid or SSI, guess what? These programs, they are means tested. And what does that mean? That means, how much does this person really need assistance? How much do they have access to? What do they have in assets? What do they have as far as who do they know that they can get money, that they have access to the money? So these programs, they consider all income and resources that they could have access to. And when you have this type of trust, the special needs trust, you are not going to be, the beneficiary is not going to be the owner of the property that's in the trust. And their Medicaid and SSI is not going to be affected because they don't own it. They don't have access to it. And so that's one of the great things about a trust, is taking something that you have and making it not yours.
Right. So last episode, we talked, Chris and I both have that analogy of the box, right? We're putting our assets into the box, and I call it a safe box, because we talk about like having it locked up and not everybody can have access to it. So when, like Chris was saying, SSI or Medicaid is trying to see like how much does the individual have access to, anything inside that box, they don't have that access to it, right? So I think that's a really great point. And I know before we, weren't going to talk too much about it but since it's a new episode,
I still think that if this is something that you need, or somebody that needs, why don't you get in touch with us and we can discuss it more in depth privately, because there is a lot more to it. It's not just, but the main point is that
if you have a special needs loved one, right? And that could be a child, that could be,
you don't want to, you don't want to mess up their ability to be able to have help.
Right. And Chris, you were telling me before that, there's that little caveat, the little specification of like making sure, and we always talk about it, how important it is to work with a professional, because isn't it true that if they don't do the paperwork right, or if they don't do something right, then they can lose their eligibility for SSI?
Yeah. And that's what we definitely would be talking about with them.
Yeah. So it's great to protect yourself like that. The next one is the Spendthrift Trust. So guess what? I'm not a lawyer. I do not play one on TV, but I do think that the Spendthrift Trust is really more than like it being its own trust. It's a provision and some language that's included in the trust that's of importance. So what it does in essence is it restricts the beneficiary's use, the Benny as I like to call them, of the trust property as collateral for any loans or to pay off debts. So let's say that the beneficiary wants to get a loan, they cannot use what's inside the trust. Or if you happen to be leaving, your child who has an insurmountable amount of debt and creditors chasing after them, and you don't want it to go to that, you can use the Spendthrift Trust to kind of protect that. So really, like this critical clause, it's included in most trusts to help prevent access to the trust interest by others. Like I said, creditors is a huge one. What Chris and I, talk about is like having the right things included, and including this verbiage or this provision, whatever you want to call it, in a trust gives you the control of asset distribution to a beneficiary who may be, I'll say, immature. Like my friend who wanted to use it for luxury hotel accommodations that I mentioned in the last episode. If you haven't heard that episode, please go back, listen to our previous episodes. They're great. Or it could be used for somebody that's like, irresponsible with money. Maybe they would spend it all at once. I don't know, your family, or could have a family member with an addiction. Right. So the spendthrift provision, it really protects your heirs who are spenders, who are not that great with money, but also those that are kind of a little maybe naive and maybe susceptible to fraud. So in essence, we're limiting the access of the trust assets. So creditors can't get access, so fraudsters can't get access, and so that they cannot just spend it on debt. The language is important.
Yes, it's absolutely important. And one of the things that I love about the Spendthrift Trust is that, yes, you have access to anything that it makes, any of the profits that it makes. So if it's invested in, or you have real estate, say you have a real estate in the Spendthrift Trust. Well, the asset is the property and the income is the money that's coming in from the rent. You have access to the rent. You just don't have access to the actual asset. Like if you were to sell the property that's inside of the Spendthrift, you have to put that money right back into the Spendthrift Trust. You can't take that money and go spend it on something else. You can put it back into the trust, or you can use it to buy another piece of property, but it belongs to the trust, not you. What you can have is you can spend the money that it makes. So if it's making money, you can use that for living. And that is one of the things that I love about our Safeguard Trust. It actually includes the Spendthrift, so you can do the same thing. The Safeguard Trust was designed to incorporate so many of the different separate trusts. And that's why we call it a hybrid trust, because it takes the best parts of both irrevocable trust and revocable trust. Either one of those, revocable or irrevocable, just the traditional type, they both have pros and cons. But with the Safeguard Trust, we take all of it together and we can create an awesome trust that it not only protects your assets, but it also allows you to be you can be the trustor, the trustee, the beneficiary. You get to wear all three hats in that type of trust. Whenever you have and I talked about it before, but the revocable trust by itself is great for probate. Keeps you out of probate, keeps you out of a conservatorship. Those are two awesome things, but it is not for asset protection. You have to get another type of trust to be able to have that. Or you can have a safeguard trust and it includes asset protection, plus it allows you to be the trust or trustee beneficiary.
And that's why we like them, right?
Yep, I love it. And the other thing that I like, the other trust that we're going to talk about today is it's the Medicaid trust. So what is the Medicaid trust? Well, the Medicaid trust is a trust that protects your assets from, just like we were just talking about in the first one, for somebody that you have in your family that has disability,
Special needs.
the special needs trust, it basically doesn't, none of these assets count against you so that you can't have access to Medicaid. And Safeguard Trust also includes that. That's also included in it. This is pretty close to my heart because my family actually just went through this with my grandmother, who passed away at the end of last year. She had a will, but she didn't have a trust, and she didn't have an irrevocable trust, a safeguard trust, not just a traditional irrevocable, because a traditional irrevocable is not the best way to go. So when she got sick, she had to spin down all of her assets
to like 150,000 or something, right?
It's way less than that.
Way less than that, huh?
Yeah,
Oh, gosh.
it is. She had to spend all of her money. They wanted her to not sell her house, but they would help her, but they were going to put a lien on the property. And if you've ever known anybody in your family that's been sick and has had some major health care issues and needed some help, but they didn't make very much money, but they made way too much money to be able to qualify for the assistance. You know how that feels. I mean, it's horrible because Medicare will actually pay for you to be put down.
Oh my
what
gosh.
I mean, I know that sounds drastic, but what I mean is they'll pay for hospice, but they will not pay for you to have home health care. You have to spend your own money to pay for that.
Wow.
And it's not like there's anything wrong with paying for your own stuff, but if you want to leave something for your family, something that you worked so hard for, you want to be able to leave it to your family. You're not going to be, I mean, if you live longer than your money, or you live longer than you thought ever possible, you're going to end up spending everything and you won't have anything to leave for your family.
Or even to survive, because I mean, like, let's say that you start out your retirement, and I know this goes against everything we talk about retirement, but let's just say for, the purpose of the example, you saved all this money for retirement, and then you need long-term care assistance and go into a facility and you spend it all in the first couple of years that you get out. Now you have nothing left. Like, you ate up all of your nest egg.
Right. Which is true. And the reason why I say this is sad for me, because my grandmother did not want to, she had left her home to one of my aunts, and she wanted to make sure she had a place to live, and she just wanted to make sure she was taken care of. And so she basically put herself on hospice. And I feel like, I mean, she was 98 years old. She lived a great life. And that's what she said. I've lived a great life. I'm tired, she said. And I mean, but this woman was tough. She had fallen.
Of course she was.
She was your grandma. She had fallen like that year and broke her hip.
Oh.
Now that usually puts people out, especially at that age. Not my grandma. I mean, she didn't even want to go to rehab. She's like, get me out of here. I'm not going to rehab. And she's like, I'll do this stuff at home. And so she did her own rehab at home. And I mean, I think she had a will to live, but I think when she saw her money was running out and that they were going to actually, we'll help, but we're going to put a lien on your property. We're going to she's like, just put me down.
Oh, wow,
just put me on hospice. And I hated that. I hated that so much because we were willing to pay, and she did not want us to use our money for that. And she signed, I mean, she was all there mentally. She was no dementia at all, and probably better memory than me.
Wow.
Much better memory than me. And it's a sad thing to watch your family members go through this. And it's interesting because my mom and my parents, I had actually just we got them a safeguard trust. And my mom was nervous because she's just like, I really don't want to give all my stuff away. I don't want to and I'm like, you're not giving your stuff away. You have 3 hats here, 3 hats. The law has made this legal for you. Let's give it from one hat, take from this ownership to this ownership. You still own it. You just own it differently, and it will never be counted against you. And you won't have to spend every cent you have to be able to have home health care if that's what you want. And anyways, I just think it's something that's very, very important that most people don't know anything about.
Yeah. And I'm so sorry, Chris. Your grandma sounds like a wonderful woman. And it's really unfortunate that that happened for your family, because family is so important. And on that note, I would like to talk about my family. We kind of talked about him, Achilles, the hacker. Sorry, I'm trying to lighten the mood a little bit. Achilles is my fur baby. And for those of you who don't know, he's my little Pomeranian. And for little guys like him, there are pet trusts. So Achilles, a year ago, had cancer and a collapsed trachea. And I know that my mom, who's a fellow dog lover, my mom has 4 collies, so she loves dogs. And I know she would take care of him without any question if I were to die. Like, there wouldn't be any, doubt in my mind that she would take care of him. But with his health issues, I would be putting her into a financial burden. I mean, his medical expenses range in the 5 figures every year. So, the thought of creating a pet trust for Achilles really helped me make very specific decisions regarding his healthcare and life. I mean, I love her and I don't think that, she would, but, I don't want my mom giving him substandard care because maybe at some point, she can't afford, his surgery or the medications that he needs. He's a little old man. I mean, he has arthritis medicine, as well as his medicine for his pain and his lungs and everything else. So the trust makes, funds available for her to pay for Achilles' food, toys, grooming, but his, exorbitant veterinary care. So, trust can do a lot.
Stephanie loves Achilles more than she loves any human on this planet. I can tell you that.
I seriously do. I do. I have a shirt that says, "Dogs are my favorite people." Isn't that what it says? Yes. Chris has the same one. We're twinsies.
Okay. And let me talk about one of my favorite trusts. It's called the Charitable Trust. And these trusts are attractive and a win-win option for people that would love to be able to prioritize charitable giving when it comes to their overall plan. They offer streams of income and great tax advantages. And you might have heard of an AB trust. This trust, it's a joint trust that separates into 2 trusts. When one partner is married, one partner in the marriage dies, it splits it in half. And that way, if the new partner or the one that is still living gets remarried, that part of the trust it's been split in half. So now she only has access to half of the trust. The other trust will go to the beneficiaries of the children, whoever, just like the thing we were discussing before about one of Stephanie's clients.
Joe.
Yeah. And it's, you can do this with an AB trust. However, you can also do this. This is another thing that's been added to the safeguard trust. So, I mean, it's not an AB trust, but it does exactly the same thing. Those that have, considerable wealth may choose an AB disclaimer, and it can help them avoid federal estate tax. But for like the rest of people that don't have considerable wealth, the safeguard trust, I think, is the perfect option because it's like several trusts in one, and it takes, like I said, the best of the different kind of trust and adds it into the trust.
Right. And that's the only one that we ever use.
The Safeguard Trust.
Yeah.
Yeah, we actually use a company so this trust, this Safeguard Trust, that has all these amazing benefits. Typically, if you go to an attorney, if they even know about it, because most attorneys just want to sell you a revocable trust.
Mm-hmm.
What did I tell you that will protect you from?
Probate.
And Lindsay Lohan?
Conservatorship. I can't even say the conservatorship. I can't say the word.
Right. So if you find an attorney that will actually write up one of these safeguard type of trusts, they range from anywhere from $7,500 to $15,000 because of all of the amazing benefits. And I found a company not too long ago that actually, they have made it so much more affordable that our clients can have access to this. I mean, if you don't have a lot of money, even at the lowest end, $7,500 is a lot of money.
Right.
We have worked with them to be able to create a very, very affordable estate plan for our clients. And they have been in business for over 30 years and have been doing the same thing for clients all over the United States. And we love them. And
yeah, they do a great job.
They do a great job for us and for our clients. And they help us make sure that our clients, that their trusts are actually funded. They make sure that every year. So I know I love to tell you stories, but listen to this. My parents paid $7,500 for a revocable trust. They paid $7,500 for a revocable trust that doesn't even give. Remember, it only saved us from probate. It didn't protect their assets. It protected us from having to go through probate, which is it's amazing. But I wanted something that protected them. Mm-hmm. And my dad told me that every time he called the attorney, I mean, even for not even 10 minutes to ask a question, he got a bill for like $250. So that's the other great thing about this company that we work with. There is not they charge a yearly fee, and the yearly fee actually is it's sort of a joke because it is about $35. Most people can afford that $35, but it's one of those loopholes. Remember, the less you know, the more they make. So they found a way to be able to have a membership so that we can offer this to our clients at a great price. And you, if you want to know more about this Safeguard Trust, reach out to us, because this thing is sort of like, if you were to give me $1 and I give you $100, would you take it?
Absolutely.
I spoke with a woman 2 days ago, and she had questions on the estate plan. And I was telling her about, why in her situation, she needed to have an estate plan. I mean, she's got a good amount of money in her retirement account. And most people can't see any other way. Our whole financial system has been set up for people. We believe that we're being taken care of. We believe that this is the right way to go. We're doing everything that we think we're supposed to be doing. And by the end of our conversation, I felt really bad for her, because it's like she's so caught up in traditional way of thinking about things. Everything she could think of was like, how much is it? How much is it? How much is it? How would you to one day be in a place where you don't have to be worried about how much it costs, because
just thinking about what value is it going to bring me?
Yeah, what is the value or
solution to a problem I have?
And that's why I'm saying, like, $1. You give me $1 and I give you $100. Why would you say no? Because you only wanted to spend 10 cents,
right?
And so it's
short-term vision. They don't see the long-term benefit,
right? Well, I was talking about my parents. My mom, after she went through this with my grandmother, now she totally understands the whole purpose of this type of trust.
Isn't it funny though, how parents are some of the last people to listen to their kids about some of these things. I had that same thing with my parents. It took them years for them to be like, okay, Stephanie, you know what you're talking about. I'm going to ask you. Sometimes they just don't listen.
Well, I know we've been talking for a little bit, and we've talked for the last 3 episodes
About estate
planning, because there's a lot to it. There's so much to it. And we want to flip that script on the less you know, the more they make. We want to make that the more you know, the less they make. And
good book title.
Yeah, that's going to be the name of the next one.
Hey, did you guys hear that? You guys heard it first. Chris is writing her next book.
So keep an eye on that.
Yep.
And we are going to talk about next week. We're going to talk about the financial freedom formula, the formula for financial freedom.
Yes.
And
how we get people financially free in 3 to 7 years.
3 to 7 years. Is it possible?
Hell yeah, it is. Oh, can I say that on a podcast?
I did it.
Okay.
If I did it, anybody can do it. Okay. We're out of time, though, Steph.
Yeah. Thanks for that, Chris. I mean, you shared so many great stories. And what I love about when you tell stories is that they have, a life lesson that is relatable and understandable. And, I get really caught up in jargon and technical, like I could be writing a textbook, but Chris explains things in such a down-to-earth way. And I love that. So I learned a lot. You answered so many questions. But if, we just talked, like you said, about estate planning for the last 3 episodes. But if you, for whatever reason, did not get your questions answered, we do want to hear from you. What do you wish you knew more about? Leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and ask in the review, or send our Facebook page a message. We do want to hear your feedback.
Well, that wraps us up for this week. Thank you for tuning in. Please join our Facebook group, CashFlow Hacks. It's a great place to ask questions, get your questions answered, and follow our Facebook page, CQ Consulting Services, our YouTube channel, Financially Sassy Woman, and our Instagram page, LinkedIn and Twitter. Subscribe and give us a like, thumbs up. Remember, sharing is caring. Who do you know that needs this information? Thank you for listening. We'll be back on our next episode where we're going to be sharing, like I said, the financial freedom formula. See you on the next episode.
To continue helping you flip that script. Bye.
Peace out.